All right, here I have Rebecca Sharp. She is my neighbor, and she's doing the middle-aged category. And yeah, so the first question is, what is your biggest accomplishment?
Gosh, having 4 kids and raising 4 kids.
Yeah.
That I would have said something different 20 years ago for sure, but that takes a lot of work. So yeah.
All right, next one is, what is your best memory?
Oh wow, that's hard. First thing that comes to mind is when I was younger and with my immediate, like my nuclear family, my siblings and my parents, and we'd have like a family home evening activity, and we were just giggling. Something was funny, and like those are the videos that I want to go back when I get to heaven someday. I want to go back and watch those videos because it's gonna be funny. So I just have really good memories of having such a good time with my siblings. And maybe there's a part of me that wants to go back to that and like not have responsibility and be a parent, but like, yeah, sibling memories.
All right, what is your biggest goal in the next 5 years?
5 years, okay, let's see. Okay, probably get out of debt. My husband and I have a home equity line of credit. It'd be great to have that paid off. And then just be like, we just bought a new house last July. So within 5 years, I would hope that we're like making progress on the mortgage and maybe even down to a 15-year mortgage by then. I don't want to be stuck in a 30-year mortgage for too long. And so yeah, I guess it's financial. And then hopefully my kids are doing well in life at that point.
Hey, how do you think life now is different than life when you were a teenager?
Oh wow, very different. When I was a teenager, we didn't have cell phones. We barely were getting email. Internet wasn't a thing. So as a teenager, like I had to, if I had a research project, I had to go look it up at an actual library and read books. I couldn't just, I do remember when I, later in high school, I was able to, Google wasn't a thing. I couldn't just, there was like certain research engines that you'd have to use, but you'd have to like ask a very certain question, and it was in these certain like online libraries, but we had to like reference everything. Like research papers were very different. And then, you know, the whole TV is different. And then the fact that like we have phones in our pockets, we're out and about and we run out of gas, we just pop out our cell phone and call someone. And so it's so different. It's all technology related, I think. And then yes, when I was a kid, I feel like there was a little bit more, I guess we were a little bit less worried about the world. We weren't like super worried about our kids getting kidnapped, or, you know, I'd walk home from school and think nothing of it, or we'd go out and play after school and we wouldn't see our parents till bedtime and it wasn't a big deal. But like nowadays, we keep tabs on our kids. We know where they are at all times. Generally, we have like the Find apps on our phones where we're like tracking people because we just live in a different world. It's scarier, and it's, we just have to be a lot more careful. We have to like guard our identities. We have to make sure that we're not sharing too much. So I feel like even just the way we trust people is way different. I'm not going to go talk to strangers quite as easily as I might have 20 years ago. I'm not going to share personal information with other people like I might have 20 years ago, just because there's a lot more dangers, a lot more risk in doing stuff like that. So it's way different.
Are there any ways you can think of that life is similar now to life when you were a teenager?
I mean, there's always the things that don't change, right? Like, I remember being a teenager and asking my parents if I could go out somewhere, and they'd, you know, give me a curfew, and, you know, so a lot of the family dynamic I feel like is just very much similar to how it was when I was growing up. I'm still very religious, and I kind of raised my kids in the same way that my parents raised me. Even though the world is very different, I feel like there's a lot that kind of stays the same. There's peer pressure, just like there was. I mean, yes, it's kind of exacerbated. I feel like there's a lot more depression and anxiety, and maybe that we're more aware of things like that. But I still think they existed 20 years ago, and we still had peer pressure, and we still had, you know, hard things that we had to go through in high school and preparing for college, and all that was very much the same. Trying to find scholarships and get a good grade on the ACT test and figure out what you're going to do with your life. That's very much like, that's not going to change. That's all the same.
If you had the option, would you trade spots with a teenager now and grow up with the current technologies?
Absolutely not. No. I look at my kids and I think, gosh, they have it so much harder. There are things that are easier for sure. Like I wish I had Google when I was a teenager, and the cell phone is nice to have, at your fingertips, but I absolutely wouldn't change it because I definitely think it's harder. And I look at how strong youth have to be these days to just, to just survive the technological world and to survive social media. I didn't have social media, so when I was growing up, we didn't know what was going on with our neighbors. We didn't know that someone was off having fun without us because we saw pictures. Like, none of that was a thing. So I feel like I was in my own little bubble, not knowing what was going on in the world, and it was great. It was kind of a charmed growing up, just because I didn't have to worry about what anybody else was doing. But nowadays, like, my daughter has to see on, Facebook or on Be Real or something, people that are hanging out without her, and feels sad about that. And so there's a lot more pressures. There's a lot from social media that I'm so grateful that I didn't have to even worry about any of that while I was a teenager, because that's a huge struggle, I think.
If you could offer one piece of advice to teenagers today, what would that be?
Oh my gosh, that's hard. Because I'm a mom, the immediate thing that I think is listen to your parents. But I would say just not to worry about too much about what other people are doing, and know who you are. Try to find out who you are regardless of anybody else, because that's something that I've tried to do as I've gotten older. And I went back to school as a 39, 40-year-old, and it was really cool to be like, I don't care what these other girls are doing, what these other people think, because I know who I am. So know who you are, get to know yourself, be confident in who you are, and then listen to your parents a little bit. But don't worry about what anyone else is doing, because it doesn't have to affect who you are and what you need to do with your life.
All right, if you saw a $100 bill on the ground and nobody was around, what would you do?
I would probably see if there's an establishment nearby that it might have dropped from somebody. I did this once at Meters. I saw a $20 bill on the ground, just 20. And I was like, oh no, somebody dropped this. And I went and brought it to the cashier. And she looked at me like, what am I supposed to do with this? But I was like, I can't keep it. I would feel guilty keeping it. I don't know whose it is. So I just gave it to her in case somebody thinks, oh, I dropped something, and goes to the nearest place they were. So I would just, hopefully if there was something nearby, I would just go give it to whoever works there. If not, I would maybe try to find someone in need. I would just feel too guilty keeping it myself. So I'd have to go find someone that needs it better than I do.
If someone insulted you on the street out of nowhere, how would you react?
I would be super offended. I don't think I would say anything back. I would just be like, oh, and kind of go my way. And then I'd go complain to my mom or my sisters on Marco Polo, or tell my husband about it. Can you believe? I wouldn't say a thing to the person, because I'm not confrontational. I'm a people pleaser for sure. So I would not make a fight, but I would just be like kind of offended and just leave them alone and put my head down and go away.
Do you think AI is a good or bad thing in general?
In general, I mean, I think it's good. I think that we're getting more knowledgeable as humans. Like, we're learning so many things, and to be able to learn from other people, that's one cool thing with social media and with being able to look things up on Google or whatever, is that we can not just rely on our own knowledge, but we can get knowledge from everywhere. And so I think that that's good, but it also it can be bad, because I don't know how to explain why I think that would be bad. Just because it almost depends on who is at the other end of that, or like who programmed this AI or whatever, and you're kind of at the mercy of whoever you ask. And so it could be good, but I still think you have to be wary of it, and you still have to make sure that you know what you think before you trust AI.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so I am here with my papa. He's my grandpa. His name is Don. How old are you?
66.
66. Awesome. So yeah, I'm just gonna start with the first question. What would you say is your biggest accomplishment?
My biggest accomplishment would be to marry your grandmother. And then, of course, we had our family. That's the biggest accomplishment, taking care of them.
All right, next is, what is your best memory?
Best memory? Best memory. Give me a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 'Cause there are so many good memories. Childhood, it has to be fishing with my grandfather. Those are a lot of good memories there. Going hiking with my father, who's also my scoutmaster. Those are some good memories. Lately, it's been just going on trips with Nana and cooking at home with her.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, since she's passed away, it's actually cooking recipes that she used to do for us and figuring out how she used to make things. And it's always nice because when I do that, it seems like she's right there with me helping me cook dinner.
What is your biggest goal in the next 5 years?
Biggest goal in the next 5 years is to prepare for retirement.
Nice. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, and then along together with that, figuring out how to provide for Melissa and Troy when I can no longer take care of them.
Yeah. How would you say life now is different than life when you were a teenager?
Oh, that's a fun question.
You were just talking about this,
Yeah,
right?
that's a fun question. So there's so many ways that life is different. When I was a teenager, we had no personal computers. We had landlines. And so when you talked on the telephone, you could spend hours talking to a girlfriend. Or sometimes you'd not get phone calls at all, and it'd be kind of sad. If you wanted to arrange a date, it was scary to call up a girl on the telephone. That probably hasn't changed much today because no matter how you contact her, I'm sure it's just as scary. But driving and hanging out was a big thing to do, and that was a lot of fun on the weekends. And don't know if I think that's different today. I don't think teenagers get together as much as they used to. But yeah, so the other, those are probably the big. We didn't have an internet to do searching on. When we wanted to take pictures, we had to wait to get the film developed. No digital pictures were available. That's so. A lot's changed in 50 years.
Are there any ways you can think of that life is similar to life when you were a teenager?
Well, I think when you take away the changes, like the social media, you take away the iPhones, you take away that kind of thing. I think what's similar is the fact that people still like having friends. They still like being appreciated for their accomplishments, and people enjoy a good smile, and they enjoy a good joke, a laugh. That hasn't changed at all. People enjoy being complimented for their achievements, and that hasn't changed at all. So the things that you do out of the kindness of your heart, or out of respect or love for others, that hasn't changed. It still makes you feel good to know that other people love you.
If you had the chance, would you trade spots with a teenager now and grow up with the current technologies?
That's a good question. If I had to do it, I would say I could do it. But would I want to do it? I think it'd be kind of scary because I'm so challenged with today's use of technology. But I'm sure if I were a teenager growing in today's world, I could handle that.
Yeah.
But would I want to handle that? Probably not, because I so enjoyed the memories of what it was like to hang out when we didn't have that technology.
Yeah.
So that was that's a little bit different. But there's a lot of interesting things that happen because you have that technology. So I probably wouldn't want to go back. But if I had to, yeah, I think it would be okay if I had to.
If you could offer one piece of advice to teenagers today, what would that be?
Well, that piece of advice, first off, it would be learn to smile at all times and all places. It would be to know that God loves you, so that, and the reason for that is to have the confidence because you have value. That's the reason why I would want people to do that, because every person has value. And regardless of their appearances, regardless of their achievements, regardless of their talents, everyone has value. And I want the youth of today to know that they have a lot of value. They have a lot to offer, and I wish they all knew that. I love the youth of today. There's so many good youth, but I wish everyone knew that there was something good that they can contribute if they could learn to figure that out.
If you saw a $100 bill on the ground and nobody was around, what would you do?
Well, I'd pick it up. Now, I'd look around to see if perhaps the owner, if I could find the owner, but you see nobody was around. But yeah, I'd pick it up, and if there was any clue as to who as to who it belonged to, maybe it was in an envelope or some note was on it, yeah, I'd try and figure it out. That's a lot of money, and I'd want to see it get back to its rightful owner. But if that was impossible, yeah, I'd put it to good use. Maybe, in fact, if I really felt about it, I might decide to give it to a good cause.
If someone on the street insulted you out of nowhere, how would you react?
Well, I can tell you how I hoped I would react, and I can probably tell you how I probably would react. I would probably react by ignoring it. That would be probably the best case. The worst case would be that I would say something stupid and ugly back, because that's my natural instinct. But honestly, I would like to think that I could reply with something witty that would let them know that in spite of their insult, I did respect them.
All right, so first of all, you know what AI is, right?
Artificial intelligence.
Yes, okay. Do you think that is a good or bad thing in general? If you had to pick one.
Okay, I think it's a good thing. I'm excited about what might come about because of it. And I'd like to think that people would be smart enough to train it so that it would be a useful technology and not one that would harm people. And that's kind of the biggest fear too, because it will only be as good as its programmers are. And so hopefully those people that design that will be people who have respect for other people, who have integrity, who have solid moral values.
Awesome. Okay. Well, that was all. Thank you, Papa.
You're welcome. Anytime to talk to you.